look out for that. Please let us know if there are any technical issues, audio, visual issues. We are on hand to assist with that via the live chat on ripehouse.com.au, or obviously within the chat bar on the right-hand side of your screen directly within this interface. So on that point, you are able to ask questions throughout this evening at any time. If the question is relevant to what I'm currently speaking of, I will stop and answer it right there. I'm trying to keep it very dynamic, conversational style. So please, if you've got anything on your minds, reach out. It'd be great to have a conversation about it. If it is more general in nature, I will gather the questions up at the end for a designated question and answer session. Okay, let's jump right in. We're looking at about 45 minutes, then about 15 minutes Q&A tonight. So please, I hope you get something out of it. We do run these events monthly. Tonight, of course, is our June end of financial year capital growth with yield research event. So I'm really looking forward to taking you through our recent findings, areas that Ripehouse investors are successfully researching, buying in, that have had great results recently, and how to use the software potentially to find the primary growth and yield suburbs anywhere across the country. Obviously, without the software, there's going to be a lot of takeaway content that is relevant. You can apply. It's not bound to the software. Really hope you can take notes and really get a lot out of this evening. I really want to try and help and challenge us to think about property investment differently. We do things very differently here at Ripehouse. You'll soon see that the way that we research what we, how we package that together, and the process is comprehensive but very different. So hopefully you do get something out of this evening. Let's jump right in. Really excited to get through the content. And once again, if you do have any questions, please shout out. I'd love to hear, before we get started, just a little bit about yourselves. If you can just let me know where you're tuning in from this evening, and are you currently looking to purchase your first property, your first investment property, or you're an experienced or current investor? It'd be great to get a little bit of clarity around where and what you're doing in property. So let's jump right in. I probably might make the point as well that there is about 20 or probably about 50% of the content tonight has been seen before. So it is a bit of a baseline. I need to establish this baseline so we can all be on the same page and understand the June research together. So I do apologise for those that have tuned in before and seeing the same content. We do have to do that, as obviously, to establish that baseline. So I'll jump right in. A little bit about me. So I am an investor. I've been investing since the early 2000s. When I was in the early 20s or teenager-ish age, founded Ripehouse in 2011. So Ripehouse has really been born by me as a property investor to help me to start with, and then obviously other investors now to find and understand property and find their next outstanding property investment. So it might be worth just going back to how I got started in property, a little bit about my story. So if you will indulge, I'll take a few minutes to just give a little bit of clarity, and hopefully that allows you to relate and understand where I'm coming from, and therefore why we do things the way we do. So as mentioned, I'm actually recording in from Tasmania tonight. It's very cold and we've all got the flu down here. Lots of you in Melbourne, Andrew Melbourne, James Sydney, investor 15 years, Terence Tungabi, New South Wales, looking for third investment, Julia, Captain's Flat, looking to buy my fourth property. Good luck. Jeremy Hogg, hi fella, how are you mate? An old friend from New South Wales. We've got Carloon from New South Wales, current investor. Edward, can we spend a few minutes finding property for a potential development? Of course we can, Edward. That's more general in nature. I'll jump onto that at the end. So, Rod, Brisbane, one investment property. Thanks for you guys who have taken the time to make note of where you're calling in from and the properties. Keep them coming through. As I mentioned, it's great to get this nice and dynamic and really give an understanding to each other what we're trying to do in property. A little bit about me. So I am currently based in Hobart, Tasmania. Have been investing in property for about 15 or over 15 years now. Bought my first property down here in Hobart for $145,000. Did a renovation on it. Lived in it for a short time. Rented it out for $240 a week very soon after. We were lucky enough back in those days to have really high capital growth down here in Hobart. We are having some great growth at the moment down here, but in 2005, soon after I bought that property, we actually had 45% capital growth in a 12-month period. It is on record the highest growth per year for a capital city. I was able to buy another property just before that growth amount. Then I met my beautiful wife, Anna. We then moved to Sydney for work and professional purposes. Lived up there for about 6 or 7 years, and I guess that's when things, I had a funny start to property. I actually grew up with my father predominantly, who we didn't have much money. He was on the dole. I'd saved up some money and was very ambitious about growing my wealth, really taking control of my situation and what we were doing. I had this amount that I'd saved for quite some time. Looked at stocks and bought the Telstra shares when they were released and really didn't understand it. I couldn't relate, and then sort of was still looking through shares to other asset classes. I had my eye on a property which would have done really well for me. I think that was $80,000 at the time. Didn't end up buying that down here in Hobart. Vastly different numbers to what we're used to these days. Didn't end up buying that. Ended up spending my deposit on a sports car from Japan. That came over, and that was an absolute nightmare. Sold that, and then after that false start, bought my first property. In that time, property prices had already gone up to the first around. It was a similar property that I did purchase for $145,000. I missed out on that early growth, but I really was passionate and very keen to get started in property. Probably the aha moment for me in investing and turning towards property was reading Jan Summers' original book, and then also engaging with her audience on her property forum, Summersoft, which is now not operating anymore. That really allowed me to talk with other people, learn from them, and get excited and really, pumped to invest in property. I guess all that changed when I did move to Sydney. We wanted to keep obviously investing and buying property, but then I found myself in an alien landscape, somewhere I really couldn't understand. I didn't understand value, why people live there. Was just about to purchase in Mount Druitt through a friend online who had recommended. We'd done some research and due diligence out there. Went out to inspect the property, which did on paper or on the internet look great, well priced. Only to find, yes, it was in a great cul-de-sac at Quiet Street in Mount Druitt, which is low socio area, but it was smack bang between the public housing and the train line as the crow flies. So people were actually walking down the cul-de-sac. They'd knocked the back fence down and were using the actual property as a thoroughfare. So even while I was there inspecting the property, I had multiple, 10 people walking through the property. They'd worn a track in the lawn, knocked the back fence down, and were using it as a public thoroughfare. So obviously that really got me thinking. I had a little bit of cold feet. It was obviously the reason why the property was a lot cheaper than it should have been. But really, I did pull back and lose confidence and decide to take stock. So there wasn't any shortcuts to this process and actually buying our next property. It took about 2 years. Every weekend we'd go and have breakfast or lunch at a different suburb, okay? So we'd be spending a lot of time in vast different areas across New South Wales, Sydney regional, etc., understanding why people lived in certain areas, why they paid certain amounts, why they rented in certain streets. We really wanted to understand that. So I guess we were starting to develop a framework to assess suburbs and assess value. Do this in a standardized fashion. I'm an analytical thinker, but technology and marketing and data background, I suppose. So all of these things, I went back to my core to solve the problem and gain that confidence. It did take 2 years. We did develop a framework. I was able to purchase and gain that confidence. Okay, we've gone on to purchase other properties now across Australia, and then we've moved now back here to Tasmania for the kids and grandparents in school. So probably a little bit of insight. Obviously, that framework, that key that we unlocked and gained confidence has evolved and developed now into Ripehouse. Okay, so that was in 2011. We actually formed Ripehouse. It did start off as tools to support our own purchasing, and now has evolved into a tool that is used by hundreds or thousands of investors nationally to research property. You're able to do your own research, you're able to find individual properties, and you're able to get some understanding, that local knowledge in streets and suburbs across the country. Very important. So we are a community. It's a community of DIY property investors. Very proud of that fact. We are investors for investors. We try and engage very closely with our users and try and help each other get some great results in property. So once again, a little bit about me. I hope you found that story useful, gaining a little bit of context, a baseline to keep going into tonight. And I will get through things, I promise, a lot quicker than that story. I understand it's a valuable Thursday night for us all. Right, what I'm going to be taking you through tonight is a system. It's a complete system to reliably target properties that are going to achieve some amazing growth. I'm not talking about finding properties that are going to, achieve outstanding growth every year for the next 25 years. The system is very good at front-ended growth. That's a term I'll be using quite a lot tonight. Finding properties that go up very strongly in the short term to medium term, then they might slow down. So if you're looking over a 10-year period, you might get the same growth as the city overall, but the shorter term that you're looking at that property, it's really outperforming things. So that allows you to leverage in, make some great money up front and then leverage that into building your portfolio or even selling down that asset and taking some money off the table. So this system is actually, I've got some case studies, some examples tonight. In a lot of cases, Ripehouse users are generating 25% growth in the first year of ownership, okay? You might say that number seems very high, but when you break it down into the way that we do, and I'll take you through this tonight, you can see how we eke extra growth above and beyond the normal, all right? Our first job in this system is to increase our catchment area. We have to look across the country for the #1 growth opportunity today. We have to get the LGA right. Which LGAs are leading the charge? And then which individual suburbs in those LGAs are amplifying the results. In those suburbs, there's exact streets that will be going up in value the strongest, and some streets that might be potentially going down in value at the same time. We have to find those sweet spot streets, the exact property type and property that is driving that growth forward. We want to buy those. We want to negotiate and potentially buy under market and add to our upfront growth. That whole system, I'll take you through the steps tonight. When you amplify each of those stages together, you can do some really amazing things. Okay, step 1. Before we get into it, I might just want to ask a question, and I'd love to hear your answers. So jump in to the chat bar over on the right-hand side. Rod has just asked the question, what is an LGA? A local government area. Okay, Rod, so there's 551 from memory across the country. Usually about 15 to 20 suburbs in each. They are a great collection of suburbs that usually do things at a similar time, in a similar way, for similar reasons. Okay, so we look at LGAs very closely when performing our research. Okay, I hope that clarifies things for you. I just probably wanted to ask this question, a bit of a reality check before we continue. If this is a system we can take off the shelf, we understand it, we are property investors who can implement it ourselves, what would it be worth to you? So $5,000 might be a typical seminar, education course, process, still not getting you any closer to transacting. Another number we're pretty used to seeing in the property space is $10,000. That might be a buyer's agent's fee to help you buy a property. It might be a good result, but you're not getting any closer to learning how to fish. You're only being supplied the fish. Okay, that's a number we're used to seeing. This is not transactional buyer's agent or educational cost. This is access to a system that you can implement over and over again to generate excellent results. Would this number be more realistic to access that system? Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear. Step 1, I did promise we'll jump straight into it. The first challenge in generating these outstanding growth results is increasing our catchment area of interest. Okay, what I mean by that is we need to be looking across the whole of Australia for the absolute peak potential from today. Okay, the chances that this is going to be next door to where you're currently residing or the area that you're usually investing or researching is not good. You might be lucky enough to find that 1 3-month period in every 15 years that the area that you are the expert in or the local in is competing at a national level or scale in terms of its growth prospects. So the further we spread our net out, the more chance we're actually going to find somewhere that's going to deliver us outstanding results. If we look across the whole country, there's usually about 20 or 30 suburbs that are actually, according to our research, looking at very reliable chance of great growth results from day one of ownership. To look across the country, we've got to increase our comfort level, improve our resilience, our research tools, and our understanding to be able to negotiate and acquire anywhere. Okay, I'll break that down a little bit further. The way that we look across the country to find areas to invest is not by comparing state versus state. This is not the answer. Okay, we're not going to go and say, hey, Queensland looks very positive. We've heard all the media stories, the generalisations. Queensland as a state is looking like a good growth opportunity at the right time on the property clock. That is a generalisation. That is not our answer. We can't compare Queensland to Western Australia, two generalisations, and go and invest in Queensland. When you think about a state level property clock, you know, the clock moves around from a peak to a slowdown phase into a recovery into a growth phase. Okay, so distinct phases. You might have certain regions within Queensland, regionals, coastal, that are in the slowdown phase, while southeast Queensland, some boom areas are in that, you know, the strongest part of the growth phase. And as an aggregate, together, they're actually a compromised, conflicting story. And a general, the state information is general in nature. It's not providing us any insight. So I just wanted to make that point. Let's not be lazy. Listen to national storylines, mass media, and invest in the state based on that. The answer, as I touched on, is in the local government areas. But another important point I wanted to make before I get into how we analyse local government areas, I wanted to stress the importance of live data, because if it takes us 6 months to go across the country and collate all of this information for us to make a decision, then we're running 6 months behind the time. If we've taken that amount of time to determine, I want to buy here, you've already most likely missed the boat. Okay? So there's one thing, you need to be able to look across the country and digest the whole state of affairs, but you need to do that in a timely fashion. How timely? Well, here at Ripehouse, we've basically been obviously in development since 2011. We challenge the status quo. We are able to digest the whole country, every state, local government area, suburb, street, and property that's on the market. Over 212,000 properties currently on our database on the market every single day. It's actually 3 times a day. So whenever you look at any number, LGA, suburb, street, property within Ripehouse, it's current and live to today. So you are making decisions based on real-time information. That is contrasted to maybe, say, an example of another research source. It might be a quarterly research report by another provider. They might buy their information, their data from a secondary provider of that. We own all of our own data sets, so we are able to do things a lot more timely. It might take 3 or 4 weeks for them to receive that data set for the previous quarter when the quarter closes on the knocker. 3 or 4 weeks to gather that data set up. They then have to digest it. They have to do their due diligence. That might take another 2 or 3 weeks. Then they actually have to write the report and then distribute it. In some cases, we've seen 8 to 10 weeks by the time a quarterly report is published that is out of date from the date that is released. It's not good enough. So we have challenged that. And now we obviously have monthly reports within Ripehouse. Our June report is just to be released. We actually close our research now 3 days before that report is produced. It is live to the day research, 3 days to produce, vet, and then send out. Okay, so we've compressed those timelines because it's very important to make timely decisions. Okay. Before I go on, I just wanted to probably jump over into the Ripehouse tool set. I am now logged in to the Ripehouse dashboard. We've got stories, seeing what other investors are doing with our research strategy tools. You can view the Webcast recordings. Lots of great information here on the Ripehouse dashboard. This is the page that you see when you actually log in as a user. I'm going to draw your attention to the 5 layers of research within Ripehouse. This is the very important tools. Okay. The first one on the top of the list is the state of the states. It's going to help us to understand where each state is on the property clock. As mentioned, this information is live, but it is irrelevant, okay? If we understand what's happening at a state level, we can understand that it's a generalization. It's not really helping us in our search. You can see, though, on this page that we do present the property clock for each state. When you see the heartbeat next to it, it means that that information is live. It's generated as you are seeing it, okay, in a timely, daily fashion. We can see, let's use the state of South Australia. It's actually at the top of the cycle. It's generally is a state undergone recent strong growth. For the first quarter of this year, it was actually the highest growing state in the country. Also, Adelaide was the highest growing capital city in the country. It is undergoing a very strong growth phase at the moment. All right, that might be to say we can still find suburbs within South Australia at an LGA level. Sorry, we still might be able to find local government areas within South Australia that are still a little bit earlier in that cycle, still in the early growth phase, giving us quite a few hopeful years of upside before this market peaks. So we want to find a few of the laggards in the South Australian market. This is where we go now into the local government research assistant tool, okay? Once again, live data. This is going to help us find the actual LGAs within South Australia set to lead the charge now. Not 3 months ago, not 3 months in the future. All right? It's very important, this timeliness, okay? Because if we're able to position ourselves just before the market really moves, we can, markets typically have a long stagnation, then they will grow very quickly in a short amount of time, and then they'll slow down again. We've got to be able to reliably position ourselves just before the market momentum, use that larger groundswells of less sophisticated investors. When the media story hits, we want to position ourselves just before it and use those larger buying groups or less sophisticated investors to provide us the growth. In most cases, we've seen the first 8 or 10 weeks within Ripehouse, 5% above average growth. If you position yourself just before it, you're obviously doing very well. That's what we're trying to do, okay? I just wanted to illustrate that point. If you're holding an asset without it growing, you're developing opportunity cost. You could have put that money into another asset that goes up in value. We want to avoid that. And we also want to avoid buying an asset that's already grown. You're now competing against lots of other buyers. We can't assess value, and you've already missed out on growth. We have to get that right, okay? Breaking this down, this outstanding growth, when you look at things very simplistically, a typical very good result is 12% growth in the first year. You might have been able to negotiate 3% capital growth 3% under market on purchase. You might have purchased in a state, an LGA, and a suburb that have combined together to give good growth, and you might have done a really good job and got 12% growth. In the Ripehouse system, we're looking to amplify these results, okay? So we're looking to find the most outstanding LGAs and suburbs in the country. We're looking at finding the exact streets that will amplify our results, another 3% growth potentially. And then we're looking at trying to find markets where we haven't got that heat yet, but it's about to very quickly build. And then that is going to allow us to negotiate far under market, potentially 7% here, per the case study coming up in a moment. But then use the larger buying groups, the less sophisticated investors to deliver us the growth. Okay? Hope that gives a little bit of insight into how we can construct this 25% type of growth. All right, before I go into why LGAs are important and how we compare them to each other, I just want to this is a newish slide here on the Ripehouse webcast, go into a little bit of detail about how we've been giving recommendations within Ripehouse, for how long, and the types of results that we've been getting, okay? So back in the early days, we were really just giving giving you the data, and you had to make your own decisions based on it. It wasn't until the beginning of 2015 that we actually started giving direct recommendations. We gave the top 10 capital growth for 2015 recommendations on January 1st. The average suburb growth for each of those was 10.1%. We then developed and further evolved and were able to give very reliable street-level recommendations. We're on the cover story of Money magazine in September 2015. We worked to identify 10 suburbs. If you had invested in just the suburbs, you would have generated 8.42% capital growth. The brief was it had to be quite general across the whole of the country. But if you had invested in 133 streets that with very, I suppose, pinpoint accuracy of the recommendation, that's the level of detail we went into, you could have generated 14.9% on average capital growth. So you can see how things are getting better. And you can also see the difference between just buying in the suburb and the exact street that we recommend. We then launched at the beginning of 2016 our regular monthly pinpoint predictions reports, usually about 15 suburbs in each, about 60 pages of research. They've generally been delivering about 13.9, 14.9% growth. Then we have further evolved the engine to focus on areas that potentially we can negotiate more effectively in. And the AI engine, which was added on top of that in October 2016, has since been delivering about 18.7% growth. This is in the first year of purchase, okay? It's not going to maintain these levels of growth for the next 25 years. We're looking for front-end growth, 1 to 3 years of very strong growth, okay? We've got very good at doing that, and this is what powers the system. Okay, I might just take the time. The key to our research, I suppose, before I go into suburbs, is finding the key LGAs within the state. Okay, we can use the research tools here within Ripehouse. You can see I selected the South Australia link from the State of the States page. That's taken us through to show us all of the LGAs in South Australia. So some of these have different suburbs, average price of 292,000. You can see it's got some ticks and crosses. Generally, the more ticks, the more likely imminent growth is to occur. This is probably the most important number on this page, the property clock time. So we can see for each LGA where that area is on the property clock. We want to target areas that are looking like they're in the recovery or early growth phase. So 7 to 9 o'clock on the property clock is optimum. That shortens our list dramatically, as you can see. I usually like to see 3 to 5 ticks. And then another unique score that we have within Ripehouse is the opinion score. So we actually routinely interview experts in the industry, so valuers, real estate institute members, buyers agents, experts in the industry for their local understanding opinion. The more an area, a suburb, and an LGA is associated positively with those recommendations, the higher the opinion score. We are also monitoring media, and whenever the media does have positive sentiment, it does increase it. So generally, the higher the opinion score, the higher the expert sentiment with an area. Let's click on the city of Norwood. Not sure exactly where that is. I'm from Tasmania, remember. What that's going to do now, it's going to load up every suburb within this local government area and allow us to compare them like for like. Our job here is to find the 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 suburbs within the LGA that are really driving things forward, okay? This page is the Explore the Nation page. It's a visual representation of each suburb, allowing us to compare them like for like. I might just go back to the slides for a quick moment and just illustrate why that is important, because we've got to find the exact suburbs in each LGA that are primed for imminent and outstanding growth. Just remember, we've got to beat the masses into these. We don't want to wait until these large, lots of buyers in the market, because then we have to compete against them. We want to position ourselves just before them. Okay, we want to potentially buy in suburbs that have been laying dormant for longer periods of time that allow us to negotiate and really drive a hard bargain, and then potentially about to do some really strong or deliver us some really strong growth results from day one. So dormant markets, negotiate hard, get high growth up front, okay? That's the importance of what we're trying to do. An actual example of a Ripehouse investor is Guy Williams, okay? Guy has purchased a lot of properties over the years, but it wasn't until he really, or it wasn't until he joined us here at Ripehouse about 2 years ago, he was able to buy 10 properties in the first 10 months of a Ripehouse subscription. We've audited his portfolio, his results. They are all online at thefrontierinvestor.com, our research publication. You can see the individual properties and the case studies there around his purchases. The average capital growth for each of those 10 purchases was 25% in the first year. Cash on cash return of over 105%, and the average yield on these properties was 6.25%, so firmly cash flow positive. He's done some amazing things with Ripehouse, and there's lots of examples on the Frontier Investor within our materials that can demonstrate how you can do it for yourselves as well. I just probably wanted to make this point before we do compare suburb versus suburb. What are the key drivers of imminent, I call it hockey stick growth, where you have flat line and then suddenly things rocket off? What are the key drivers at a suburb level that help deliver us this growth? It's not rocket science, it's buyer behaviour, it's common sense, it's logic. But when you see how these stars can align and the reasons why they do it, this gives you a little bit of insight into our research and how the suburbs are stacked up against each other. Generally, in an area, we'll see increases in demand. We might see a new train line, university, Westfields, IKEA, business park, whatever it is, it joins together. I don't care really what it is in absolute terms. I'm only looking for when it starts to impact on the demand for property in the area, okay? I don't care if the train line has just been announced, if it's people are already riding it to city. I'm looking for how people are changing their buying behaviour in the area. So typically we look for rents being pushed up first and then yields increasing together. Very important. We want to see rents going upwards, people are paying more to live in the area, but growth hasn't started to occur yet. So yields also grow at the same time. The two together are very important. This is a pretty important point to make. When people first move to an area that they haven't been to before, they might have moved to this, Moreton Bay, and they might have moved up from Gold Coast. They generally, if they are moving there for employment or this increase in demand, utility, the train line, whatever it may be, they will rent first and test the waters, okay? They will generally push rents up for about 6 months, then they might start buying, okay? So 6 months or so after, we generally see if things are going in the right direction, sales volumes increasing. That increased buying pool are now starting to buy. They're not just renting, they're now buying. And opportunistic early stage investors are chasing the increased yields that were occurring 6 months before. So we see the first thing happening, the second one, sales volumes increasing and a delay. Then we ask ourselves, are days on market for the area steady? The time it takes to sell a property after it's listed, is that steady? That generally means if you've got sales volumes creeping upwards, days on market is stable or decreasing, it means it is a stock tightening. It means that supply or developers are not putting stock into the market and we're having a flood of supply. So that's the final check and balance. Sales volumes going up, days on market steady or decreasing. These are the stars aligning to generally deliver really strong, reliable, outstanding growth. There is a lot more that goes into it. We actually monitor about 121 metrics automatically at a suburb, street, property, LGA level, combine that together using some really smart artificial intelligence to reliably find these suburbs. We can use the Explore the Nation page to find them, but none of these are really jumping out to me because we might have strong metrics on a suburb, but we can't buy any property there. Or there's no one else buying property there, so we don't have that firm opinion or expert sentiment in the suburbs. So I like to see suburbs that tell a nice visual story. The higher the metric score, the higher the likelihood of imminent growth. The higher the opinion score, the more experts are positive about the area. And the higher the interest score, the more Ripehouse users, investors just like you, are looking and buying there. So sometimes you might like to join a lot more of investors together and have that comfort knowing that other investors like you are also buying, or you might like to invest in suburbs that have a low interest score and know that you're the first ones out of the gates into work. And investability, we need to have investability. We need to have properties on the market in this area to be able to actually buy in the sweet spot streets. The higher the income, the more reliable, the higher the yield, but the more reliable the vacancies and the volumes of rentals are, okay? So even though we've found an LGA that looks great, we've actually found no suburbs within the LGA that are leading the charge forward. A way we can do that is by using the preset strategies over on the left-hand side of this screen. And this will go across the country and find great combinations of LGAs, so LGAs in that sweet, that 7 to 9 point, plus the suburb in a really nice point for imminent growth without much heat. The undercover strategy is a great one for finding these suburbs before anyone else. Okay, this is an area which I'll go into a little bit more details tonight. Gills Plains, a lot of Ripehouse users are buying there actively. We're using and supporting Ripehouse users as buyers agents in these markets specifically at the moment. Lots of great things happening there at the moment. What this means is an undercover. I'm going to, before I click in, just probably give a little bit of insight into what an undercover strategy is. So we have 3 default strategies. Undercover has great metrics. We think that the data is going to lead to great growth, but we don't have many people investing there yet, and the word is definitely not out. We're really early adopters. When the experts in the media start catching on, it becomes a boomerang, as you can see. And then when we have groundswell of investor interest, it becomes a big green. There's opportunity all the way through, but sometimes I guess you're probably putting yourself further out on a ledge on an undercover strategy. Your upside might be stronger, but there might be a little bit more risk that doesn't occur. Boomerangs, we've got a little bit more public sentiment. Big greens, very likely that we're already seeing growth or about to, but you've got lots of other interest there, okay? A little bit of insight into the types of suburbs. Very generally, this is not always the case. You might see an undercover just a little bit earlier in this buying window, boomerangs right in it, and the big greens just after the growth has started to occur. Okay, I am going to focus on the undercovers here. This is in our June report, the suburb of Gills Plains. Outstanding, very strong growth metrics. Haven't covered it yet. It hasn't been in a report yet. We have been actively buying with clients there through Ripehouse as you do it yourself or with the advised assisted purchases. Gills Plains, none of the other experts in the industry who we've talked to or media are onto it yet. Okay, or building investor interest, but it's still low. Great investability, very strong income. Let's click on it. Our next job is finding the exact streets to purchase in. Okay. We don't want to buy in the street that is not going ahead within Gills Plains. We want to buy in the exact street set to deliver us strong and outstanding growth. Okay, I'm going to be focusing on this as the case study tonight. This is in our June report, a very strong candidate for growth from day one and also very strong yields. Okay, I just wanted to make the point, let's turn the screws. A critical part of this system is getting the street right. Okay, think about the suburb that you live, which streets you know to seek out and you would recommend your friends to buy in or live in. Going ahead, you can tell that this is really positive things happening here. And you also know the streets to stay away from. You'll never live there. We've got to be able to find these streets that are really moving forward for every suburb across the country. We've done a lot of research at a suburb level, at a street level, unique data sets, and we've found a combination of 5 factors at the street level that result in outstanding above average growth. What we've found, when you combine these 5 things together, you can expect at an average 21.9% above average growth compared to the suburb overall. So that's relative terms. It means if the suburb goes up 4%, you can expect almost 5% growth in the same period. The big difference. In Sydney, over the next 10 years, that's the projected projected growth above and beyond the suburb average of $240,000. You need to get this right, okay? The street is very important. These 5 factors are public housing at 15% or below in the street, lots of the in-demand property type, lots of 3-bedroom houses if that's what people want in the area, strong tenant demand. So above average rent, above average yield, and lots of tenants wanting to live there. Those are the 5 things that deliver us above amplified growth from day one. It's only usually about 10 to 15% of each suburb. Okay, not every suburb has a sweet spot. Some have quite a few, some have none, as I mentioned. We've got to get this right, okay? Another little quick snippet before we jump back into the software is you've got to think about where amenities are in the suburb because they have a dramatic effect on value and also growth. 250 metres away from your closest school is the optimum effect on growth and also value. 1,200 metres from the closest transport hub and about 1,200 metres or below to the closest major shopping centre. Public housing has a dramatic impact on value and growth, plus or minus 20 to 25%, depending on 0% public housing or lots of public housing. Very strong impact. Okay, let's go into the suburb itself. Okay, we're in here in Gills Plains. It's in South Australia, in Adelaide. It says that 3-bedroom houses are most common and in demand. It is currently 25 properties that have been found on the market. Each property is a red icon on the map. We go across all online search listings like Google does, gather them all together and provide them all to you in one place. For each property, you're able to see how long it's been on the market and has it been discounted. So this property here has actually been discounted by 9%. I can click on that listing and I can see it's been on the market since May, originally listed for $384,000, now asking $349,000. Okay, very important information. We want to use that to negotiate on. But is that property in the key sweet spot street? This is our next job. We can see things on the suburb map like the darker the red, the higher the public housing. Remember, we want to be under 15% public housing. This is way too high here, 28.6, 27.3, and this property is within 19.1. So we're going to rule it out there. We want to see exactly where owner occupiers are living in the green and tenants living in the yellow. Where houses are in the green, units in the yellow, so tenants demanding houses, units generally. We want to see where the higher renting streets are and the higher yielding in the green. If you remember, we've got 5 things we need to look for, okay? We can be doing this manually and filtering through those 5 things and writing them down and trying to find those street level areas, or we can use our Ripehouse Sweet Spots overlay. We can click on the capital gains toggle here. That is going to show us the exact street level area that is qualifying as a sweet spot. You can see and filter properties into that area that are on the market, and we will apply that filter. We only want to view the properties that are actually on the market in those streets. And we can see here that one of them is a unit, one of them is a townhouse, which would qualify as in demand, okay? It's a house, potentially a block splitted house here. This is qualified. This is in our sweet spot area, okay? It's in demand property type, and we've gone from 25 properties down to 2, and one of them qualifies for the right type of property. Jason has just asked about how about flipping? Okay, so with flipping, you actually want to target streets that have owner occupiers. I'm going to muddy the waters here. This is going to be very confusing, but I will say, Jason, you can use the software. It's very powerful. It's got very broad and different functions. There are tutorial videos to show you how to use it for flipping, but in very simple terms, you can actually look for the different streets within a suburb that are targeted or suited to flipping. Okay, we want to find owner occupiers who will pay a premium for your renovation. They're generally owner occupiers, more emotional, and we'll show you the exact streets to buy in for a flipping strategy. Okay, you can use the software in multiple ways. Tonight is about finding capital growth and cash flow together. I will just say, though, that you can use it differently. So this property here, I don't own the property. I haven't seen the property before tonight. Our next job is to do our property level due diligence. We want to use things that we've seen in the listing history. Has it been discounted? Has it been on the market for quite some time? To potentially negotiate effectively with the agent. So this is obviously very new condition. We have algorithms that try and assess the likely condition of a property. It doesn't always get it right, In this case, it's said that the property is good. All that's going to do is go away and find comparables that are more likely to be similar in condition. It shows you this property's been on the market since 1st of April. We can see suburb and area level information. It's now going to go away and find the top 5 most likely comparables. We never advise to rely on an automated appraisal for any property. You can't click on a button and get a printed off report and use that to effectively get confidence to negotiate. You've got to take the time to go through each comparable one at a time, determine if it is superior or inferior. If it is inferior, like this one is, you take it from the mix and remove it. Okay, you then move on to the next one. You might be able to remove some without even looking at if they're a long way from the middle. But you're basically trying to get this 5 properties to a very close range of very similar properties. Then you can take them through to the appraisal tab. It'll show you how the likely value of that property is impacted by its location. And then I haven't spent the time to obviously find comparables. I'm still relying on the automated appraisal. But it will then tell you the final appraisal price for the property, asking price, and estimated yield. Very powerful. You need to control and own the process of finding those 5 comparables because you want to use those to negotiate with your agent. You want to create some doubt. You want to get them to justify their asking price by their comparables, and then you want to dispute the comparables by using your own. Okay, very important part of the process. I've just gone over that on the slide here. I've probably covered off all of that. Yeah, I guess probably this is a time to ask, are we looking for amazing growth? It's probably a very obvious question. I think we probably all are. But I did want to take the time out, just a couple of minutes, to go through a story of one of our Ripehouse investors. Her name is Lauren. She was actually looking to buy an investment property for about 18 months before she found us at Ripehouse, okay? So we are a subscription service. Lauren had spent a lot of money on her education, going to seminars, tens of thousands of dollars from what she has told us, multiple seminars. She actually found out about Ripehouse at a property seminar and was talking to the lady next door. They were having a bit of a chat as she doing, and the lady that she was talking to mentioned she should check out Ripehouse. She had what we call analysis paralysis. It's very familiar. She had been looking to buy her first investment property for a long period of time, was really over-analysing it. And what we see is people have conflicting strategies. They go to one seminar which says maybe renovate, another that says subdivision, another one just getting yield properties. The stories are conflicting. Once you hear 1 or 2 stories, you're not able to really work out what your best path forward might be, and you develop analysis paralysis. Lauren found us, she became a subscriber, and within 3 weeks of subscribing, she was able to purchase her first investment property. Okay, she saw that Ripehouse really did bring the focus back onto growth, and outstanding growth really makes all of the other advanced strategies, unless you're really good at doing it, pretty redundant. Okay, it de-risks it, it gives you yield to de-risk your serviceability. It brings front-end growth to de-risk things from an LVR perspective as soon as possible. It made sense to Lauren. She was able to buy that first property within 3 weeks, really move forward and actually start investing. Ripehouse provided her, in her own words, a framework to be able to take action, and it made sense. I hope that resonated with you a little bit, because we do see this over and over and over again. People making that first purchase, it's putting a huge amount of pressure on it because they have to get it right. It's taken so long to get there. It doesn't need to be difficult. We need to break it down into a system and a process. Okay, just before we go on, I just want to say a big thank you. I'm going to be going into Q&A soon and some more research information in a few moments. But I wanted to take a pause and say a big thank you for taking the time out tonight on a Thursday and joining us. If you are here, you're obviously pretty excited about taking the charge towards growth and what that means potentially to you and your family moving towards your next wealth goal, lifestyle, retirement, or even creating intergenerational wealth, okay? These are some of the things we can do in property. Based on this fact, I feel that Ripehouse is a really great fit for you as an investor looking at really taking the bull by the horns and driving towards great growth outcomes. To that end, I'd love to pause for a moment and extend the thank you to a special offer for you here tonight. Okay, Ripehouse is only available for via an annual subscription. You've seen how very specific the recommendations are. They're extremely valuable in and of themselves. The information is very right on the, very specific in nature. We cannot offer those in any way via a monthly subscription. The only way we can justify the great expense and systems that we've developed is via an annual commitment. We want to develop a commitment and relationship with you over a 12-month period to develop the community, to get you engaged, using the system, the platform, and buying successfully. So you have to understand that they're very valuable in and of themselves, and we do ask, and it is only available via an annual subscription. In that time, it is usually only available for $1,597, everything that you have seen tonight included at that price. But as a big thank you tonight, we're all on the same page. I'd love to extend a $400 saving to you to get started with us right here tonight, okay? To make sure that we get the most out of the software over the next 12 months, you did hear us mention the monthly reports. They're usually $97 each if you want to purchase them off the shelf. But we're going to include each one of them for the next 12 months included in that price. So you can digest that, you can keep it as your desktop companion and use that to use the software to find properties and to purchase, okay? It's the complete end-to-end system. You can see why we do package it up and ask for that annual commitment. There is a huge amount of value associated with that. I hope you can see that value and really, I suppose, take advantage of this offer to join us tonight together. This is a little bit about what some others in the industry have got to say about Ripehouse and what it means to them. So there's researchers, I suppose, educators, other buyers, agents, and other investors just like you, okay? As mentioned, we've had thousands of people using Ripehouse over the years, many hundreds as of today actively using it to research and purchase. This is probably, it's obviously in a financial year. It's very relevant to the time it is right now at the moment. In some cases, please check with your accountant. The Ripehouse subscription may be tax deductible as an expense against your property education, research, and tools, okay? Please check with your accountant if it is applicable to you or even possible for you. But in some cases, we have been advised that yes, it is able to be deducted in your tax against your property income. All right, how can we lock this special offer in right now together? Let's go to www.ripehouse.com.au/bonus. That will pre-fill or lock in that special code. It is only available until 11 p.m. tonight. So that closes the door on this special offer. On this page, you find the big red Get Started button and click on it. That will then take you to the sign up page. You will see that the coupon is automatically applied for that $400 discount. You'll need to enter in your name, phone, and email address, and then click on the green subscribe button. You need to might need to wait 10 or 20 seconds for that coupon to be applied. It will then pop up with this incredibly secure credit card processing pop-up. You just enter in your credit card details. That is then securely sent to Stripe. Your details are held by them to start your subscription, okay? Your details are securely transferred between you and Stripe. We don't receive them. As soon as we receive confirmation of that payment, within a minute or two, you'll have your account activated. Your welcome email, please check your spam folder. It might be sent there. Remove it if it is. That will then, it is your welcome pack, your logins, all of the great information to help you get started, references to our learning center and all of our resources to help you understand, and obviously that first report to get you on your way. So let's do that now. I might just continue through and press mute for a few moments whilst you're doing that. Whilst you're asking any questions, I'll start gathering them now. If you don't want to stick around for the question and answer session, I really hope you have found tonight interesting, informative. You've taken some key concepts away that you might not have seen before. You're able to apply it generally in your property investing life. I really do hope you have found it beneficial. I would love to hear any positive or negative feedback in any way. Please take the time right now to jump on chat and just give me some feedback in any way. It'd be mostly appreciated. I will press pause the mute button for 1 or 2 minutes, gather up the questions, grab a drink of water, and be back to answer all of your questions. So please keep them coming. We've got lots of great ones to get us started. If you don't want to stick around, once again, thank you very much for your attendance. Okay, let's jump right in with the questions. Yeah, so Jason C is asking around Melbourne, exactly. Generally, most of the LGAs throughout Melbourne, Jason, there's already a lot of demand either in them or they're already in the slowdown phases. So we have typically probably moved past Melbourne within Ripehouse. Generally, it is more regional areas that are heavily featured in the current report in Victoria and also in the software. Okay, so probably not a good example to go into tonight for the core June research. I am happy as part of the software potentially to go through that with you one-on-one and take you through the report or support with my staff to take you through that report if it's more convenient to help you get the most of it and apply it to Melbourne. Because even if it's not featured directly in the report, we can still find the best potential there. It's about if your catchment area extends only to that city or state, we have to find the best opportunity there. We can show you how to do that. Yeah, how do you define live exactly? Andrew has asked. It's a long time between drinks if you're looking at population data via census. Absolutely. Another data set, obviously, that is from census is public housing, which we have spent a lot of time in actually gathering. Public housing is a data set. We actually have 121 different data sets. Okay, public housing is one. Public housing is one where we have a 6-month cycle since census, where we are LGA versus LGA monitoring public policy, individual public housing projects, and modifying the street level percentages of public housing. We've been doing that consistently since the last census and have the most accurate data sets in many cases for those types of metrics. Okay, so that's a static 6-monthly rolling data set. Other data sets like sales volumes, days on market, rental yield, actual price, etc. We are monitoring that on multiple times per day for every suburb, every street. And that then, it's a combination of those 121 metrics that give us our growth recommendations, and that is live. We are doing that constantly, 3 times a day, updating each LGA suburb street recommendation. So therefore, the recommendation and the metrics are live when you look at the combination of them all. So out of those 121 metrics, some of them might be 6 monthly, some of them might be 3 times a day, but the combination of them all is regenerated 3 times in that day period. Hope that makes sense. Well, the critical point is that the recommendation itself has to be live. It cannot be, it cannot be taken offline and put into spreadsheets, or the software takes 6 months to work it out. We have to be this constant state of flux, this rolling recommendation. Okay, it has to be constantly dropping suburbs out and picking up new suburbs that qualify. Okay, Andrew once again is, does your system reference population stats finding cities with more than 15,000 people. I guess it does. So it's looking. It doesn't. I guess probably to answer that a little bit more, a little bit more clearly, it doesn't specifically rule out those areas, but we are looking for stable, strong growth prospects. Okay, we're looking for markets with very high income scores, which have low variance in that. So generally, if a regional was to qualify, it's not necessarily ruled out, but it generally doesn't qualify. Based on the metrics, I guess probably to extend that, we see a lot of the satellite suburbs of our key cities that generally qualify. So some examples that we've had great results in Geelong. We had over 30% growth for many Ripehouse investors in 2016 in lower to mid suburbs of Geelong. It's generally those satellite areas, the Newcastle's, more areas more recently, that we've had the recommendations and had great results. Okay, based on the metrics and the algorithms, it never really recommends those regional areas based on the sample size and the variance tolerances within the algorithms. Hope that makes sense. Jason, I think I have answered your property flipping question. Okay, Ryan has mentioned Gill's playing way better than out in the bush, Lakeview, etc. LOL. Capital Growth hotspot for it only has 2 new build houses though. That's an issue. We might be tightly held. We might be seeing some new properties. I guess Ripehouse, it's not about finding one suburb. We generally try and encourage users to find half a dozen suburbs that qualify. They don't need to necessarily become experts in a typical fashion for those suburbs. It's about finding the individual streets in those 6 suburbs, as an example, joining them together to form one overall suburb. So you might pick up 1 or 2 target properties per week from those 6 suburbs, and that gives you your 10 to 15 properties to do your call the agent, on, due diligence, etc. from there. So it's about joining up Gill's Plains with other suburbs in the report and combining them together to form your area of interest. Okay, sweet spots are found using our automated algorithms, Mark. We have developed those to find the unique combination of street and suburb level metrics, the relationship between them to find that above average growth, and then we have set the computer to go away and do that over and over again, so 3 times a day. It's constantly finding new sweet spots and ruling out others. Okay, so it's a moving feast. Generally, a suburb will sit in our buying zone for about 10 weeks. Okay, then we usually see if things are going well that there's too much heat and the window closes. Okay, so it's this moving feast, if that makes sense. It's not manual. All of our algorithms, etc., look at our data sets which are mined. We've got 147 million records of data going back 15 years. We own all of that data. Okay, it's critical that we do own it because we can control it and it's timely and we can do with it how we please. Okay, so very powerful is our research engine. Okay, Darren, as someone who is migrating to Australia soon in the next month, what would be the first step I could take before I can invest in property? I have about 40,000 Australian dollars to invest right away for a down payment. How do I progress from here? Okay, I would probably suggest pre-approval, talking with a financial broker who has a bias towards investment properties, just understanding, if your employment situation, personal circumstances is going to allow you to even buy a property, what your potential budget might be, and then developing the skill sets, the research, the mechanisms, obviously the tools, etc., to be able to run that in parallel. So understand your borrowing capacity, and then as soon as you get that green light, you can press the go button and purchase. So you've done your due diligence, you're potentially familiarizing yourself with the research platform and getting those ducks aligned. So as soon as you have that approval, you can actually make offers. Okay, we want to try and compress these timelines to get the growth sooner, to build your asset base and get you towards your wealth goals as soon as possible. Okay, Andrew, a few more questions. Happy to stick around. If they're short ones, yeah, as you mentioned, happy to engage. So just let me know. Tammy, that was great. Thank you. Thank you for attending, Tammy. Mark's just asking, is there growth data that you can use 10 years or longer? So what we're talking about tonight, Mark, is a front-ended short to middle growth strategy. So 3 to 5 years, you're going to get great, strong growth. Then potentially things falling back to the mean, the average. So if you are looking for longer-term growth, it's a different strategy. You're looking at different buying dynamics. So front-ended growth typically is associated with tenant-backed demand, whilst your longer-term stayers are driven by scarcity, owner-occupiers, low turnover markets, generally higher price, lower yield. We can use the software in a different fashion. Reach out to us. We'll show you how to use the software to find those longer-term performers. Okay, Jeremy, that was awesome and interesting. Thanks, mate. No worries. Let's talk soon. Darren said the price is good. I was thinking about $1,000 initially, so figure of $1,1197 was posted right in the ballpark. That sounds good, Darren. It'd be great to have you as a subscriber. Jason is trying to convince my wife about purchasing this, as she was an agent with a real estate background. Good luck on hand with any questions there, Jason. It would be great to have yourself and wife join as subscribers. We're always here to help, so any questions, let us know. Okay, Jeremy, might be worth reaching out personally. We can have a chat about how to leverage the recommendations. You've mentioned that you're a complete novice but wanting to purchase my first investment property, so we can help you and take you through that process. Julie is asking around Newcastle, how can we use the software to find suburbs with development potential? So Newcastle usually falls a year or two behind Sydney. Price points different, yields are different. There's some very strong growth recommendations through the platform in that area at the moment, and there are a few suburbs in that Newcastle area that, one, qualify for great growth, but also for subdivision infill opportunities, as you're asking. So definitely reach out to us. We're happy to use the software with you to find those areas in Newcastle area. Very strong growth potential at the moment in many of those parts, but there are a few key suburbs that do allow for infill opportunity at the same time. Okay, Darren's just asking around the Perth market. It's not, we don't have any suburbs or LGAs that are qualifying at the moment in that market. It's very difficult to quantify when the market might recover in any strong or cohesive fashion. Okay, so even in downtrodden states or LGAs across Perth, or cities like Perth, sorry, there might be one or two suburbs that are doing strong things. Generally, the algorithms are very good at making sure that there's cohesion in that story all the way through to lower the risk. So therefore, Perth is generally not qualifying. Okay, Paul's just asking, I'm looking for houses for development. Are there any analytical tools for excluding some properties? I didn't use the filter for units, so you can filter properties here, Paul. You can see my screen. You can filter by property type. We have got separate tools which I can show you as a subscriber, where you can filter by block size. So you can filter for specific property types and or block size on a separate page. Okay, Andrew's just asking what data providers we used. We actually own all of our own data sets. We mine those in terms of manually collating the data sets, ringing, whatever it may be. An example, I suppose, would be crime level LGA data. So based on different states, we're able to get some data from government sources. Some states we actually have to pay for, and some states like Tasmania for crime, we don't have standardized LGA data sets for that. We've actually had to engage academic sources to gather that, to be able to provide a national LGA crime data set. We undertake that internally and therefore own all of our own data sets. As mentioned, we've been doing this going back to 15 years in many cases. We have to do that so we can control and improve our algorithms, which are always improving. I hope that answers your question there, Andrew. How about buying land and land banking? Can this software help, Jason? It is all about finding areas where, or that are set for imminent and above average growth. Some of those areas might be very highly developed, high density. Some of those areas are lower density with infill vacant blocks, larger land banking opportunities. So there might be 20, so as an example, there might be 20 areas that currently qualify. 5 of them might be inner city, high density. 5 of them might be, fringe suburbs of major cities, which would then lend themselves to land banking. So it's just about looking at your personal overlay over our list of areas and then finding the ones that then do suit and tick those boxes. Okay, Mark's just asking, does Ripehouse help identify price disparity between renovated and unrenovated properties of the same dwelling type? This is a really good question. So it doesn't specifically give you the difference between renovated and unrenovated, but over the years we have actually found a very close correlation between the lower quartile price and the upper quartile price compared to unrenovated and renovated, very close. So I think going back, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't have the data in front of us, it was about plus or minus 5% when you look at the lower quartile versus upper quartile, and then overlay that with the average unrenovated to renovated. So my general rule there is if you're looking for suburbs that have a high price disparity, look for the quartile pricing. It can loosely be attached to the renovated and unrenovated price to get us to shortlisting suburbs quickly and then going and doing our further due diligence on them. Okay, lots of you thank you. Sorry, I'm just going through quite a few subjective questions which I'll sit online and answer directly, very specific to people's search, their personal circumstances that might be quite personal. I am going to stay on the line now and I'll keep answering questions as long as it takes. Many of you saying thank you, Darren, Rod, Andrew, Jason, Jeremy, Terence, Cassandra, Casey. Many thanks for coming along. Andrew is asking how many on your team. So I am obviously the founder and developer. My wife, Anna, is the main go-to person for working individually with clients and I guess the nice touchy-feely hand-holding person within the site. So she does a great job there. We actually have a staff of 11 people behind the scenes in different capacities helping out in development, in writing content, marketing, and then also in some more specific services. More on that in the next few weeks. Some very exciting developments coming through from Ripehouse. But yeah, the stuff is there's quite a few of us. We're not tied to an office. I guess we're an online business. We're down here in Hobart. We have staff. Majority, we've got one staff overseas, but majority are spread out across Australia. Darwin, Adelaide, Melbourne, and Sydney. Hope that answers your question there, Andrew. Ripehouse sweet spots defined by suburb or street. Okay, a sweet spot specifically is the individual streets within the suburb. So there might be a suburb recommendation as an undercover or a growth recommendation, etc. But then you've still got to find and use the software to find those individual streets. Andrew's just asking individual sessions to help use the software. Definitely reach out to us, Andrew. Happy to help set up a session to take you through and help you with things. Okay, Jason's just asked us the software take into account general demographic cultures, religions, employment statuses, incomes, etc. In short to that question, it doesn't specifically. As mentioned, we do have access to that information in terms of our data sets, but we've researched over the years that they don't have, when you look at things across the whole country, they don't have a dramatic effect on value and or growth. Incomes do, religions, employment status, demographic, cultural, etc. they don't. So a good example of that was street level insights. Public housing, 25% plus or minus impact on value and or growth. Dramatic effect. We measured the same impact on amenities and location to not just shop, schools and transport, which really do have a very large effect, but then also doctors' surgeries, parks, churches, cafes, restaurants, chemists, all of those types of things, and it really was only a very small, big three, very key metrics that have a dramatic effect. So yes, we do monitor, but they have been ruled out long ago as dramatic impacts on price and also value. Okay, I had a few more individual subjective questions. I'll leave it there. We will hang around on live chat on the site to help out if you need be. I'd love to have you all join us as subscribers. It'd be great to get you on board. We're here to help. We're here to invest together. I hope you have found tonight informative. I'd love to hear your feedback. Yeah, until next time, happy investing.